welcome to the Fit Family Lifestyle Podcast. This is your host, Casey Dark. Unfortunately, the beginning of this stream, my mic wasn't working and
Hello,
took a
hello.
minute to
I'm
get
good. How are you?
going. But right here, I'm introducing Rachael Dunn, and she's our special guest. So apologize for that, but the mic comes back on. Right here, I basically asked her about her fitness journey, and she's going to tell us a little bit about that.
Actually, I did not think you were going to ask me that question. So, yes, during the pandemic, it was like a year after I moved from Florida back to New York. I was kind of in transition. I was selling insurance, health and life insurance for like the past 9 years prior to that. And I kept thinking, why are people so excited about having heart attacks and strokes and all of these diseases? And it was because, people would get a huge lump sum because that's what I was selling, was like supplemental insurance. So I wanted to get out of that, and I just felt like morally wrong. And so fast forward, I moved back to New York in 2019, and I was there for about a year, obviously, and that's when the pandemic happened. And obviously, we all know what happened during the pandemic. It was like very stressful. We were locked inside. And so that year, I had gained like almost 30 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I I had these stretchy pants that literally ripped. I mean, I didn't even
Oh,
understand.
man.
I know, I literally thought my dryer was shrinking my clothes. I was like, man, my underwear is getting tight, like my clothes are getting tight. I need a new dryer. I literally thought that. And then I didn't even realize that I was gaining that weight until I saw a photo of myself on a boat. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, that's not me. No, 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 that's not me because I went to Myrtle Beach with my family
Okay.
during the pandemic. And then that's when I actually started studying to become a holistic health coach, was like summer to end of 2020, because I wanted to get out of the health insurance industry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started learning all these tools of like intuitive eating and reducing stress so that you can, lose weight. And, you could be eating so incredibly healthy, but if you're super stressed, your body's still going to hold on to weight. I know you know that. So that's kind of where I was at. And then 3 months later, from the summer of 2020, I basically shed all of that weight. And then I've kept it up ever since.
Nice.
Um, and I think that really propelled me forward to really want and be so passionate about it, is because I felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so incredibly uncomfortable in my own skin. And my brain was actually even like tricking myself, almost saying like my clothes are getting smaller, like maybe I'm getting older, my hips are getting wider, like that's just what it is. Like, oh, I know as you age, it's harder to lose weight and your hormones are changing. Like all these little things that I heard in my early
Mm-hmm.
20s, I was like saying that to myself when I had gained the weight. It was insane.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's
Um,
harder. It's just different. Different when you're older for a variety of reasons. But so
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I had a similar experience. I mean, there's been a handful of times where I've ended up gaining weight for various reasons, whether I was injured or trying to raise three kids at the same time. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's a lot.
I had that same experience during the pandemic where I actually, even if the world wasn't on a lockdown, I wouldn't have been able to go anywhere anyway because my leg was broken. So,
Ooh.
yes, skydiving accident.
Skydiving accident. What
Yes.
happened?
Well, so I was turning 40 that year and decided we want to check something off the bucket list and do something crazy. And,
Oh,
people have heard me tell this story a million times, but we we got to the skydiving club and we were
okay.
supposed to do the tandem where you are connected to somebody,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
um, the tandem instructor didn't show up. So it was basically like, all right, where is this guy? And they said, well, we can give you your money back or we can put you through this 6-hour class and you can learn to do it yourself. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
screw it, let's do that. That sounds like a blast. We're already here. Let's go for it. And so we did the class, and basically, on a normal jump, they would take you up to like 10,000 feet, and you'd get like good 10, 20 seconds of free fall. And
I
then,
Yeah, I've been skydiving too.
yeah,
So
well,
okay.
so with this,
Yeah.
they only take you up to 5,000 feet, and you hang off the strut of the airplane and let go, and they deploy your parachute for you. And so you only get like
Oh,
a few seconds of free fall, but then you
huh.
get to guide yourself to the ground. So I did that. Everything went great except for the landing. And then,
Oh,
upon landing, I snapped my tibia, and then my wife was supposed to be going after me, but instead she was driving me to the hospital where I had emergency surgery that day. And
oh,
yeah, so it was a good 7 months before I could put any weight bearing on it. And I just got incredibly out of shape. I got as heavy as I've ever been. Like I have, before pictures, and I'm disgusted with myself. And so
oh,
when I finally was able to get back on my feet and start exercising and moving, I realized like I can't do what I used to do. Like the things that I used to do
mm,
to stay in shape, I did crazy stuff. I was doing, mixed martial arts 3 days a week, running. I've done 2 half marathons and a bunch of 5 and 10K races. I mean, I lifted. I was crazy, but I was
mm,
like, okay, now I have 5 kids. I'm older, and I have a leg that's still healing. I can't go do all that crazy stuff. So now, how do I figure out how to get back to that level of fitness and maintain it for the long term? Because I can't do the
mm,
crazy stuff that I did in my 20s and 30s. So now I have to scale it back. But I knew there had to be a way to still be fit and still maintain my health, and that's what we've achieved, and we've maintained it for several years. And kind of in the same boat as you, in terms of that motivated and inspired us to reach out and help other people who are also busy parents, who maybe in their youth were fit and in shape, but now are like,
mm,
oh, now I got all these kids and I'm busy with my job. I don't have time to work out. I don't have time for fitness and health. And that's just simply not.
mhm. Yeah, I
So
agree.
so tell me about some of the strategies that you use. You said it's holistic. What does holistic mean?
So basically, without obviously magic pills or surgery or those like shakes or you know what I mean, all of those things that we think we need when we need to
Mm-hmm.
lose weight, where it's like all these fancy things. And realistically, in the like all of my previous clients, I tell them really not even to work out. Like obviously I'm incorporating that now,
Mm-hmm.
but very lightly. So all of my clients lost weight without excessive exercise or dieting or like, you know, counting calories. Is very intuitively. So like
Yeah, you
basically
said
intuitive
in
eating.
intuitive eating. What is intuitive eating? Describe that.
So basically honoring your hunger and fullness and making sure that you know your hunger cues, you know your full cues, and you're so incredibly in tune with your mind, body, and spirit. Because there's a lot of times where our brain or our body will trick ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be like emotional eating, stress eating, binge eating. A lot of the times we're not even understanding why we're eating.
Mm-hmm.
And we literally feel like we genuinely need fuel when we really
Mm-hmm.
don't. We don't even know. We've gotten so far past that point where we don't even understand it anymore. So that's basically how we get back on track.
Okay. Yeah, that
Mhm.
that makes sense to me, because so the feeling of hunger, 9 times out of ten,
Mhm.
like that grumbling in your stomach, that uncomfortable feeling, that's usually a conditioned response to just the environment or the time of day. So if you typically eat lunch at noon every
Mhm.
day, around that time, you know, whatever's in the environment that may cue you, whether it's you're at the office, or just the light outside or the temperature, all of the environmental cues um, have been associated with you eating at that time. And so your stomach starts to prepare for digesting food, and it starts you salivating, you start releasing enzymes in your stomach and certain acids that are there to break down food because it's a conditioned response. It's literally like Pavlov's dog, right? The bell rings and he's associated that, or seeing the doctor
Yeah.
in the lab coat and starts to salivate. That's what our stomach does, and that gives us that sensation of hunger. But that's not true hunger. That's a conditioned response. And
Mhm.
I talk to my clients about true hunger when your body actually needs fuel. That feels like
Mhm.
brain fog. That feels like
Mhm.
inability to concentrate. Actual
Yep.
like lethargy, like feeling just drained. Like you're literally
Tired.
running out
Mhm.
of fuel, and you literally need fuel. That's
Yes.
true hunger. Because if you start fasting for you know whether you're doing intermittent fasting or you just fast for a day, you'll have that hunger pains, but then over time that will subside and you'll realize like, oh, that was just the conditioned response. But then you'll get to a point where you
Mhm.
realize, okay, um, there's nothing that would be telling me that it's time to eat right now, but I'm just exhausted,
Mhm.
can't focus or think, and that's because
Mhm.
your your body's truly hungry. So I think intuitive eating
And you
makes
know
sense
what's
to
funny?
me. What's that?
Is well, I was going to say, just to kind of piggyback off that, there's so many different reasons why you could feel like quote unquote hunger, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not actually hunger. Even when you're sleep deprived, if you don't get enough sleep, even if you only get like 5 to 6 hours of sleep, your body will produce a hormone called ghrelin, and it
Mm-hmm.
will actually cue the hunger hormone. So that's another reason. There's so many different reasons why you would feel hungry when you're really not.
Right. And you're more likely to overeat when you are sleep deprived. I
Mm-hmm.
actually talked to some folks today about just the importance of sleep for weight loss. And I actually put together a whole training video on it because it's so critical. I tell people the the stuff that you do, the 30 minutes that you go to the gym, isn't what's important. It's about what happens the other 23 and a half hours of the day. And part of that is you have to get the rest and recovery, because if you don't, um, there's a bunch of processes that happen in your body that, want to conserve uh, extra calories and extra fat for energy. Um, this is one of the reason why, well, I don't know if the research has proven this, but this is the theory, is that when a man's wife is pregnant, they make a joke about the sympathy weight, and that the man ends up gaining weight along with his wife because he's just eaten for two as well. That's actually less likely. The more likely reason is that there's just a biological response where a man will, and they've measured this, will have higher prolactin levels because um, he's preparing to have sleepless nights, and body holds on to more water, holds on to more fat, because it's going to need to use that extra fuel, because you won't be sleeping, you'll be getting up, and hence we have the dad bod, right? Um,
Mhm.
and so yeah, sleep is just critical for weight loss and just
Mhm.
general health. So what are some of the strategies that you use to help people lose weight? So you're not having people go run, you're not having them do a bunch of crazy
No.
calisthenics. Like what
No.
what are you having them do that's getting results?
So I basically, so there's a whole process on it. Every single week is completely different, but I basically tap into their own internal wisdom at first. And then what we do is we figure out ways to reduce stress in their
Mm-hmm.
everyday life. So obviously, as you know, when you reduce stress, you release the weight. So a lot of like meditations, breath work, but we go a whole lot deeper into that. So I first teach people how they can go inward, right? Versus leaning on exterior things to reduce their stress, right? Some people like reduce stress with like TV or gambling, smoking, drinking, eating,
Mm-hmm.
or even sex. And so we want to teach the clients to go inward and actually understand. Basically, imagine like peeling away an onion, the layers of onion.
Mm.
It's like you really want to peel the layers back to understand why you're doing what you're doing, which typically it's either stress eating or binge eating or both, or also the binge restrict. It's literally the only thing I really see. And so anyway, so we kind of figure out and go to the root of the problem, whatever it is, we uncover that. And then we find ways where we integrate in your everyday life where you can reduce stress through like creative things or a lot of the times when we're stress eating or binge eating, there's other areas that are underexpressed. So that could be like social is lacking or creativity is lacking or um even self-love or self-care is lacking. There's so many different reasons why someone would do that.
Right.
um so we really uncover that reason, but also we go so much more deeper where we go through childhood. And a majority of the time when you have something happen in your childhood that either um like hinders your self-confidence or like
Mm.
breaks it down, that's normally when it really starts. If you were like gaining weight as a kid or you were bullied or maybe your mom had said something to you like, hey, do you think you need to eat so many donuts, and then that affects you.
Mm.
And 99% of the time, when we get into like session 8, 9, and 10, then they realize those childhood wounds and why they have issues with their relationship with food. So you're literally rewiring the brain to heal the relationship with food and yourself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Let me just catch up with these. Jonathan, thanks for chiming in. He said, I usually wait until I have a little shake when my body is telling me it's time for sustenance. Is that bad? Um, it
Hmm.
depends how severe the shake is and how long you're fasting. I mean, that is definitely signaling your body that your blood sugar is low.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, or blood pressure or both. And
yeah.
I highly don't recommend waiting that long, to be honest, just for me, because I know how I feel if I'm like too engrossed in work and I do end up having that happen, it definitely doesn't feel good. I don't know
Yeah,
what about you, Casey?
for me it's about whatever you're doing, you got to be consistent, and whatever you're doing has to be sustainable. So if you choose to be on a fasting protocol like a 16/8 where you're fasting for 16 hours and then, you eat within an 8-hour window, you want to be consistent with that. You want to stick with that for a period of time. Consistency plus time equals results. And over time, the shakiness, or there will be an adjustment period. But
Hmm.
it's when you're doing things sporadically, and like, one day
Hmm.
you don't eat at all and the next day you overeat. um, that that's when it really messes up your blood sugar levels, your blood pressure, but also
Hmm.
your sleep, because and we have circadian rhythms for our sleep, but we also have rhythms for digestion. So one of the things that keeps us awake at night sometimes is when we eat later than we usually would, or we eat spicy food, or we do both of those things. Because then what happens is our body temperature heats up because of the thermic effect of food. Our body's working harder to break down
Hmm.
that food, and it's not used to doing it at that time, and that can disrupt your sleep. Whatever you do choose to do, be consistent with it.
Yeah.
So,
And what I've realized is I feel like, and I guess everybody is completely different, male and female. And I have noticed that men do really well with intermittent fastings just because of like the metabolism and the more muscle mass and everything like that. And women, just for me anyway, I need to eat at least every 3.5 hours.
mhm.
Like the longest I can go is 4 hours, and then I start to get shaky and tired, and I don't want to go longer than 4 hours. But I think that's also just the schedule that I'm on and how my metabolism works, where every 3 hours I need to eat. I
Mhm.
get tired, and that way I don't have these massive meals,
Right.
so.
Yeah, it's if Anna was here, my wife, she would tell you that she
goes all day without eating, and then she come home at night, we'll have dinner, and then she's pretty much snacking and eating until she goes to bed, and that's her routine. It doesn't disrupt her sleep because she has a snack right before bed
Mhm.
every night. Listen, that
Mhm.
works for her. But so it's just different for everybody. And as she's a teacher, so there's not really time to go snack or sit down or always have that meal.
Mhm.
She really does do intermittent fast. It's just kind of ended up being her routine. So it's just
Mhm.
everybody's different. I always say that whatever you choose to do, the best diet, the best workout plan, the
Mhm.
best anything is the one that you can stick with long term, one that you can adhere to. There
Mhm.
might be something that you choose to do that, based on the science is actually better and it's going to help you lose weight quicker or be healthier for you. But all of that is out the window if you can't stick to it. That's that's been my philosophy. And so, when I'm working with people, I really dig in to find out, that's the first question in my mind. What's going to be best for you, but more importantly, what are you going to be able to stick with based on your lifestyle? Because I can give you something
Mhm.
crazy. I can give you something that's going to shed the weight real quick, but I always say that fast results come with slow problems. And so if we get
Yeah.
this weight off super fast, but then you're not able to stick with the crazy thing that I had you do, then a year later, or when the holidays come around, or when you go on vacation, or if you get sick, then the weight's going to come back in spades. And that's what we don't. We want to build a healthy life. One
Mhm.
of those
And
processes for me, and I'm very, and I think this is where we are going to differ as fitness coaches, is one of my processes is tracking calories, because I believe that what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed, and that
Mhm.
you
I mean, I
absolutely have
do
to
that
know
macros also.
at
Yeah,
at a
for sure. I
macro
do
level.
mac
Okay,
for
so what
sure.
does that look like in
Mhm.
terms of you give them a specific number of grams of carbs, fat, and protein that they need to
Yeah.
be eating?
Yeah. So, exactly. That's
Okay.
exactly it. But I mean, typically it's like 0.75 to 1 gram of protein per lean body mass. And
Hmm.
then obviously fats and carbs are different as well. But yeah, I mean, the thing is I feel like what I've noticed over the years is if I overload somebody with something, they're just not going to do any of it. So it's like I want to keep it simple. It's like proteins, fats, carbs, just focus on that. And then if you want, you can branch out to calories and things like that later. But a lot of the time, the macros are always going to balance out because you're watching your condiments, you're watching how much like mayo and all of the oils and stuff that really
Hmm.
add up. That is really what's going to like open their eyeballs to it because they're like, they look at their serving size, they're like, 9 or 15 grams of fat for 1 tablespoon of oil. Do I really
Hmm.
need, So it's just kind of like, for me anyway, you're putting a visual to it versus just making it like a mathematical thing,
Right.
if that
So
makes sense. But
you're encouraging them to, when they make their meals or eat anything, that they're actually looking at the caloric content, and then they're like, okay, this has this many grams of um, carbs, and my limit is this, so I can have this many of these. And is that right?
um, well, I'm just picturing like peanuts or something, but basically I give them a breakdown of the macros, what they need per day, and then
Mm-hmm.
divide that by 3 meals, obviously, and
Mm-hmm.
then try not to go over that. And if you do go over that, then you can balance it out with other meals. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like they're doing all this crazy counting because it's literally just keeping it super simple. Like, okay, I know one chicken breast is between 35 grams of protein. So I'm done with the protein for that meal. Then I just add the carbs and then I
Mm-hmm.
add the fat, whether, try to stay away from cheese and just make sure it's oil or whatever. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, because I wanted to
Okay, I
understand,
was
like,
like,
how
okay.
you do it, because it's still a process of tracking. You're just focusing on the
Yeah.
grams of the macros instead of the actual calories. Because what I do is similar,
Yeah.
where you have a budget of calories, and we make sure that we're in a 200 to 500 calorie deficit, and you need to not go over that. And same thing, if you do, it's okay. You can make up for it the next day, or you can plan for it. If you know you have a birthday party coming up or there's a holiday, you can eat in a deeper deficit in preparation for that meal, knowing that you're going to probably eat more calories than on a normal day, right? But then I talk about it in terms of a financial budget. With your finances, you take care of the important stuff first, right? You make sure that you're paying the mortgage, you're paying the car payment, keeping the lights on. And and with your calories, the important things are your protein and your nutrient rich foods. So making sure we're getting enough protein, making sure that you're hitting that 1 gram of protein for every pound of lean body mass, your goal weight, at least. And then trying to get 80% of your nutrition from healthy, nutritious sources. And I always also tell people, like, one nutrient that's underrated that doesn't get enough attention is fiber. You need 15 to 30 grams of fiber a day as well. And I tell people, try to stay on the outside aisles of the grocery store, your lean meats, your fruits, your vegetables, your food that's not processed. And if 80% of your nutrition is coming from that, then 20% can be the things that you love and the things that you enjoy.
I wanted to ask you, Casey. So I just think this is really important, and I feel like people don't talk about it enough. So if you don't mind,
go for it.
I wanted to ask a question. Do you feel like identity shifts are a really important part of fitness and your weight loss journey?
Absolutely.
And how you, I think that's the biggest thing, honestly, because that's, in my personal opinion, I feel like that's why people gain the weight back, is either their environment, people haven't changed in their environment and they're being affected by them, or they haven't had the identity shift long enough to stand strong when those things happen with their like surrounding people in their surrounding area. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they don't have that identity shift long enough, they will ultimately go back to their old habits or succumb to their surroundings of their friends and family. And I think that's one of the biggest things. Because here's the thing, if I was always, let's say, 30 pounds heavier than what I typically am, and then I gained more weight during the pandemic, it would have been that much harder to lose the weight. So, but because I felt uncomfortable, it pushed me to do the action steps to get back to where I needed to be. So I feel like a lot of the times with our clients, they've always typically, they've always had this identity around being bigger, being a foodie, being thicker, being big boned, just loving food, trying new things, which is great. It's beautiful, and I feel like that's what really differs my program as well, is that's why we focus so much on inward, because of those identity shifts, because you can still do the action steps and then you don't have the identity shift. So
right. I believe that your identity is at the core. Like, if you think of 3 circles, the core, the innermost circle is your identity, what you believe about yourself, how you see yourself, who you, and then on the outside of that is your thoughts and feelings about that, influence. And then the outermost circle is the habits and behaviors that create that and make that a reality. And a big mistake that a lot of people make is they start with that outside circle and they say, well, you just have to change these habits and then you will change your body. But the problem is if we don't change the thoughts and the feelings and start to address that identity that's at the core, then we're going to sabotage ourselves, because we, just as human beings, we look to validate what we believe about ourselves. And so, and we end up behaving and kind of, I don't want to say manifesting, but we create situations that reinforce what we believe about ourselves. And so
Yes.
we don't even realize we're doing it. It's like an unconscious
Mhm.
process where you end up sabotaging yourself because you don't, what there's this cognitive dissonance between what you are believing and what's happening. And so when someone starts losing weight, that doesn't fit with the template that you believe about yourself. I'm the big person. I'm the big girl. I'm the fatty. Never been thin. Doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. And then, you end up without even realizing it, doing something that puts you back into that like kind of homeostasis of, oh, okay, I'm comfortable. This is what I know and believe about myself, even if we don't like it, even if somebody doesn't like it. So
Yes.
making that identity shift is really important, and it's really hard. It's not as easy
Yeah.
as just like, hey, start working out, start, being nicer to yourself, just stop it. Like if it were that easy, then we wouldn't have an obesity epidemic in this country. If it were that easy,
Yeah.
to change those behaviors. But
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that
And
you dig really deep with people and like get into, it's almost like a therapy session, right?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's tears shed, and people are like, I didn't even know that was deep down.
Like I just wanted to
And
lose
so,
weight. I didn't realize that we were going to talk about my mom.
yeah, I've heard so many stories, and I'm just like, I'm blown away by their story of like
Mhm.
how it came to be. And I just am so grateful. Like sometimes I even like tear up and cry, and I'm like, I'm so grateful that I can actually connect with you on such a deep level and like know you so deep down. And I've had group sessions, 2 group coaching sessions with several ladies on there, and I just wasn't able to go as deep. But I did like the community aspect of
Mhm.
it, but I don't
For
know if
sure.
people like to share that deep,
Yeah, there's
with everybody
there's a
else.
boundary when there's other people there, when it's you one on one with somebody. Jonathan chimed in again. He says, "I intake 4,000 calories daily on average and run 2 miles a day. How can I understand what my deficit should be?" So to understand your deficit, Jonathan, you have to understand your total daily energy expenditure. You need to know the total amount of calories that your body burns in a day based on your age, height, weight, gender, and activity level. Um, there are
Mhm.
several different formulas, but honestly, you can just go on Google and look up TDEE calculator, and it'll give you one that's, they're all going to be a little bit different, but not by much. So that will give you the number, and then that will be, the amount of calories that you need to maintain the weight that you're at now. And then you will want to shoot for 200 to 500 calories below
Deficit.
that, and that would be your deficit. Now, what I will tell you is that, you know, running 2 miles a day, you're that's I would put yourself in the light exercise to moderate for that, because that's going to keep you lean. But be careful with that too, because you're burning a high amount of
Mhm.
calories are being, or a high amount of fat is being um, burned up during the exercise. But then for the rest of
You have
the
to replace.
23 hours of the day, right? You're not getting much benefit from that. You're going to burn a lot more calories by resistance training. So it just really depends on what your goals are. But if
Because the
you're,
more muscle mass you have, this is why, and I just want to interrupt real quick and get like nerdy or whatever, because I like talking about this stuff. The more protein you eat, the more muscle you're actually going to, whether it be plant-based or animal protein, that's
Mhm.
fine. But the more protein you eat, the more your body heats up and burns more calories, but also you have more muscle. Your body, where was I going with that? Your The more muscle you have, the more calories you're going to be burning when you're just like sitting, when
right,
you're just doing
or just
literally nothing.
moving around in general.
Yes,
I like to think
yes.
about
Like
it
just doing
like
daily
think
activities.
about a vehicle, right? Like a small vehicle with a smaller engine versus like a big truck with a big engine, which one uses more gas, right? It's the big truck, right? Because it just takes more fuel to move a big machine around. So your muscles are the same way. The more lean muscle mass you have, the more energy is required to just live throughout the day. And so you end up burning more calories. And that being said, when I talk to somebody who's on a weight loss journey and really focusing on getting the fat off, but they're doing tons of cardio, almost works against you a little bit, because all of the additional cardio is keeping it's preventing your body from really building a lot of lean muscle mass. It actually, and you can see it. You can see it in people who are avid runners or swimmers. A swimmer's body looks a lot different than a bodybuilder or someone who's a weightlifter, just because when you're doing that much cardio, your body's going, I have to keep this muscle tone small and light so that we can move this machine long distances for long periods of time. But it's not to say that cardio is bad. Again, you really just need to focus on what your goal is. If your primary goal is performance, and you have goals to do a marathon, or it's a goal driven expectation that you have, or you have something that you want to accomplish, then by all means stick to that routine. But if your primary objective is, I got to get this fat off my body, then doing that might be working against you a little bit. You're going to have better results adding in some resistance training and toning down the cardio. That, and I'll tell you from being a very experienced runner for many years, it's hard on your joints. We as humans were not meant to run long distance. We weren't. Our joints weren't meant for it. We as a species, we do stuff that we're not supposed to do, and we overcome that. We weren't supposed to climb Mount Everest. I don't know if we were supposed to go into space, but we put our bodies through crazy things, and we can adapt. That makes us unique. But along with that comes at a cost, right? So I don't know if I'll ever do it, but when I was training for the half marathons, I had a fair share. I've had surgery on both my knees, a lot of joint and ligament damage just from the repeated high impact running. Ask myself, do I want to go into my old age, with that pain and those injuries? Is it that important to me to keep running those distances? And this is questions that I asked myself before my big injury, which pretty much determined that I wasn't going to be running anymore, at least for a long time now. So I want to go back to some of the practices that you're using. So you do this kind of deep thing, and you have them really explore deep into their past and into their psyche, and try to understand where these patterns and habits with food comes from. But then once you discover that with someone, once you pinpoint like why they have this negative relationship with food, then what, to create that neural pathway, there has to be action. There has to be new habits that are created. How do you get to that point, and how does the information that you get from them influence that?
I think it doesn't really matter if I know fully the story, or whether they explain it to me or not. I mean, obviously I want to know so I can help them best, but there's a lot of epiphanies and ahas and insights that happen throughout the sessions, that basically I'm teaching them awareness. A lot of the times when we have an issue in our health and fitness journey, it all is basically like we have blinders on. And this could be with anything, not just like health and fitness. It could be like in relationships, or like self-love, or like reasons why we sabotage in any area of our life. We are so blinded because we're like, what you're saying earlier is like, we have this subconscious thing. We don't even understand what we're doing. So I literally basically give them a mirror and I show them what they can see with their awareness. So once they have the awareness of what they don't like and what is no longer serving them, then they go to, like I said, like honoring hunger and fullness. So really tapping inward. I literally teach them the tools to go inward to really self-love. And when they do want and when they are ready to self-love, or when they have the awareness that they don't want to do this anymore, the self-love always comes back to doing right by their body. So getting the proper nutrition, focusing on tracking macros, hydration, but also movement, like fun movement, not robotic movement that sucks and that's boring, but like something that's going to like ground you, like tap. I know it sounds like woo woo, but like tap into the universe, like go out in nature and meditate or journal, or like go into a park, or like be around animals, because 99% of the time my clients are overworked and burnt out. And that's why they lean on food, whether they're like business owners or they are just like high performers that are like do, and they've lost touch with themselves. So really all it is just teaching them the effective tools to go inward and to reach out when need in other areas of their life. Like I said, whether it be social or self-love, or like fixing their finances, fixing their relationships, fixing their families, so that they don't have to lean on food. That's literally all it is. It's like super simple, but at the same time, it's so deep. So
Yeah,
that's why it's kind of hard
I guess
to
it makes sense to
describe.
me that you would want them to connect with the why they have these issues with food, and you would want to substitute like eating to soothe that stress or that, emotional pain or that disconnect, and replace that with healthier things like being out in nature, being around animals, many of the things that you suggested. But also I feel like big part of changing our mindset is, I believe the mind follows the body and the body follows the mind. So um, if when we start changing things about our body, that influences the other decisions that we make. And I'll give you an example. Like
Mhm.
I would recommend somebody like have a really good, intense physical workout before
Mhm.
going to, buy groceries. And maybe also not go buy groceries on an empty stomach. Also not a great idea. But I know that if I go to the grocery store after I've had like a really, really good, workout, where I like maybe hit some personal records, it was really good,
Mhm.
then I'm motivated to not,
Mhm.
like I don't want to lose those gains. I don't, like want to buy a bunch of crap. I want to get stuff that motivates me to, like, wow, I did really good. I want to keep this going. Like this,
Mhm.
I'm starting to see results. I'm not gonna buy that bag of chips, or I'm gonna, choose for something
Mhm.
that's natural instead of something that's more processed. Um,
Mhm.
does that
So was
process
your
happen for everybody? No, but more likely to. And so, go ahead.
Hmm. Well, I was just gonna say, like, did you want me to go deeper on like what I tell them to do? Or
No, I'm just trying
I
to
just can't.
understand. I'm just
Oh,
trying to
okay.
understand your
Okay.
process, because I think
Yeah,
we both
right.
have kind of a
It
unique
is,
approach.
yeah, it's a combination, like baby steps,
Hmm.
and not overwhelming them. And then also because a lot of the times I'm dealing with people that like, but at the same time, there's such a different what I've been learning with incorporating people with actually like doing a routine of like strength training is there's obviously resistance towards it where sometimes people just don't feel like doing it,
Hmm.
and then they push through, and then they have this self-confidence of like, wow, that felt really good, and
Hmm.
that becomes their addiction of like, that felt really good, I pushed through that was really hard.
Hmm.
um Forgot my point to that, but yeah,
It's just
anyway.
explaining your process, and having them. It sounds like a big part of what you're doing is replacing behaviors that aren't serving. So you recognize that one of the reasons people have got to the place that they are is because they soothed with food and maybe other things that, led to weight gain and just general health issues. And you're replacing those with things that are not only going to help them be healthier and lose weight, but that it's going to create a new pattern of just being, mentally healthy as well. And I,
Yeah.
and I fully believe that. I think that part of our, part of our fitness and our mental health, it goes hand in hand. That it's. I would argue that you're going to see lower levels of depression, of psychiatric disorders or mental illness in people who eat well, people who
Yeah.
exercise regularly, people who get enough sleep, people who drink enough water. I would argue that that's the case. That's not going to be something that's going to be able to be ethically studied, to get definitive results. But we do know that eating a lot of unhealthy food starts to create plaque buildup in the brain, and we do know that people who exercise and keep their body moving tend to live longer. And so, for me and for my clients, it really is. I tell them this is a marathon, not a. And this is call it a journey for a reason. And if you're looking for the quick result, I'm not your guy, because this process has to take a while, because it has to last the rest of your life. This isn't about just doing something for 6 weeks and then getting the result and then it's done. This is about creating a lifestyle that is permeated through the rest of your years. It's just how we are. And it was funny because I was telling you, we have our clients track their calories, pretty religiously, but I still do that. My wife and I still do that. We track our calories every day. It's just something we do. It's just something we know. And like I said, if you check your bank account every day, you always know what's going in and out of there, right? That's important. That's important to everybody. I would argue that the vast majority of people who are, competent adults in this world have a, on their computer or on their phone have, access to their banking information and a, the mobile banking app, and they check that, right? Why wouldn't we do that with our body, with our health? I want to know what's coming in. I want to know what's going out.
And what's funny is now in our society, and what time is it? Okay, we're good. But I have a call at 6:30. My time obviously sits in like 30 minutes. But what I have noticed is I feel like because I have always been healthy, when I moved back to New York, because in Florida it's a totally different lifestyle. Like West Palm Beach is like, everyone's super healthy, everyone's super health conscious. Like I live in Buffalo, New York, and they're known for pizza, wings, fried food, pizza logs. Like they're known for their food. And it's insane because there are so many people, not that I know, but people that would see me like eating healthy or just whatever, conscious of what I'm eating, and they'd make comments like, "Oh, are you on a diet?" Like, and I'm like, "No, I'm not on a diet. I just am very hyper aware of what I put in my body." And so, if I do splurge like pizza or wings or whatever, it's so sparingly because I know how it makes me feel. It makes me break out like on my chin and my neck. I get very bloated. Like I don't really eat cheese at all because what I mean? It's just, that's what it is. But that's the environment. And that's like what I'm talking about. It's like people who grew up, and I did grow up in Buffalo, New York, but I was away for so long, I lost that identity, I feel like. But I know that if I would have grown up in like all of my years here in Buffalo, New York, it would have been a whole lot harder to, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
The environment is very, like, you really should surround yourself with people who are on the same path as you, especially if you're in a specific environment that is less conducive of your goals.
Right. Well, that's hard for people. I mean, that's some of the things that some of my clients have been bringing up with me is, and these they're reporting them as wins, but they're saying, so and so brought donuts into the office today, and I said, nope, get that away from me. I'm not doing it. Or, they made a different choice. They got a chicken salad instead of a burger at whatever restaurant they went to, or something like that. But there's always going to be that temptation. There's always going to be those things. And what I tell people is that eating should never be habitual. Eating, people will say, well, I need to get some better eating habits, or I have really bad eating habits. I need better eating habits. We'll always say eating should never be a habit. Eating should not be something habitual. Eating should be a deliberate process where you're very conscious of what you're choosing to put in your body. And it should never just be something that you mindlessly do out of habit. It should be, intentional, and this is fuel for your body. And when you take that approach, then it's okay every now and then to do like you said, tonight I'm having pizza. I planned for this. I'm choosing to put this in my body. I know how it's going to affect me. I'm not doing this mindlessly or because there's no other option. This is a choice. And then you don't have to have that unhealthy relationship with food and feel bad about like, oh, I failed. I screwed up. I wasn't thinking and I ate pizza. Up. It's like you didn't trip and knock the plate off the table and then fall and the pizza landed in your mouth. You picked it up and ate it. So did you choose to do that? Were you aware of how many calories in it? Were you aware of the macros in it? Were you aware of how it's going to affect your body? Are you prepared for that? And, was it a conscious choice or was it just a habit?
And it's funny. I did want to say this. I think this is also very, very important because you can be all the way on the other end of the spectrum. And that's kind of how I was. Like I actually grew up. And I think this is important to say. So hopefully people are still listening and on, or they can skip ahead to the end, because I think this is actually really important, almost as important as what we've been talking about this whole entire time. You can be on the whole other end of the spectrum and be like how I used to be, like my early 20s. Basically, I'll kind of reverse a little bit. Throughout my whole growing up, I would always see my mom make two meals, one for the family and one for herself. And I'm like, okay, that's so strange. I never thought about it, but I literally, and she was always like, and she was always like ripped abs, like always running, always in shape, doing like push-ups, like very, very fit. And so she would literally make like a frozen lean cuisine, and she would make this whole thing like meatloaf or pasta or lasagna, whatever, for us. And so I grew up seeing that. And I think I was almost a little bit on the other side when I was in my younger 20s. And so I never really, even though I've always been fit because I was always active, like gymnastics or cheerleading or just moving around a lot, I never really had a real relationship to food that was healthy until now, until the past like maybe 4 or 5 years, when I was all the way at the other end of the spectrum. So people growing up, they would see me and be like, oh, you've always been in shape, Rachel. Like, what are you talking about? But internally, it wasn't as like a healthy relationship as people may have seen on the outside. So I was like almost too restrictive, or I would say like no to like ice cream and pizza and like, ew, gross. Like, and I never really understood that balance until recently. Right. And so like, it's insane to feel. And now I feel how it feels. And I'm like, I can make like baked chicken wings at home, or I can make pizza at the house, or I can have cheese like once a week. And I don't feel like terrible about it. I feel great about it. I just know how it makes me feel. Not that I'm lactose intolerant, but it's just
right,
not good for you. But regardless, it's just, it's such a better spot with the relationship to food. And anyway, I just thought that was important.
It is important
as a female, I feel like there's so much of society body shaming us, telling us we need to be thinner or curvier or bigger, whatever, and I feel like as a female, not that, we have this misconception growing up, and I'm sure your wife can attest to that too. Like she'll, it's just a thing that we constantly are like shamed about food, even if we're not even big. So which makes us feel guilt about any type of food, or scared to gain weight, which actually hinders us from losing the weight, or, because we're stressed when we're eating. So anyways,
Yeah, I mean
I
we've had those conversations too at times where some of that old thinking comes into play. She's saying
yeah.
I'm kind of hungry and I want to eat everything that I know is bad for me, and I'm like, well, what do you mean? What are you craving? What do you want? She's like, I want
Mhm.
ice cream. There's more ice cream in there, and I said, well, where are you at with your calories? And she's got like 1,000 calories left. I'm like, you could eat that whole damn bucket of ice cream if you want, and you're still going to be in a deficit. So you're good. Go for it. Um, so for me, that's part of the what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed, is being able to enjoy the things. 20% of your nutrition coming from things that you enjoy, because the sugar you put in your body doesn't stay there forever. It's when you're
Mhm.
having repeated sugar and you're not getting the other nutrients that your body needs. Um, I was reading a study about sugar cravings the other day. Really interesting, because one of the when you're having a sugar crave, when a lot of people are having a sugar craving, it could be sugar addiction, right? People do get addicted to sugar, but one of the other things is that it could be
Gut
your body
bacteria.
telling you that you need amino acids, and which you would get from
Protein.
like lean meats and fats for protein, right? So
Right.
when you simply are getting enough uh, lean meat or healthy fat, or you can get it from a supplement, you can get it from fish oil, krill oil. When you're getting those aminos in, the essential amino acids, you're less likely to have sugar cravings. The thing is that sugar satiates the craving, but it doesn't give your body the nutrition that it needs. So you continue to crave more of it, which makes it so easy to binge on sweet foods. And so I
And
got.
and it's a vicious cycle. If they
Mm-hmm.
don't understand that they need more protein, they'll have the sugar, they'll have their hormones out of whack, which hurts their gut bacteria, and then they'll actually crave it even more.
Exactly.
So that's why I always tell people, if you're craving sugar, always have protein or water or both, because you're probably low on your macros for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, got to pay the
That's so
important
funny.
bills first.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, I want to
Oh
just
my God.
encourage anybody who's watching us live. If you have any questions, if you want to chime in, you just want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. Also, want to give a shout out to my man Austin from Player One Productions and his secret bunker here deep in the New Mexico desert. So thanks for putting this on. Anyone in the local area here looking for photography, videography, looking to shoot a commercial, looking to start a podcast, hit him up. Link in the description. He'll get you going. So, what about you? Do you work with any supplement companies or fitness brands, or anybody that you promote as part of your fitness business?
Well, I've been using this supplement company called Life Plus for myself
Okay.
for like maybe 2 years, and I really like them. Everything is natural. They don't have any like binding ingredients, or like even the case where, the pill or whatever they put the nutrients. It's all like organic. They actually use all natural fruits and veggies from everything. Like they have their own produce. And then if they don't like a specific farm with their produce, they'll like turn them away. They're really
Hmm.
good. So yeah, Life
Interesting.
Plus, I use them. I do like a colon cleanse like at least once a year with them. They're really good. And I also have MSM supplements with
Mm-hmm.
them, pre-workout, post-workout, protein powder. And I didn't recommend them to my clients at all until I felt a difference, because I'm just that type of way. Like if I don't like something, or if I don't research it for at least a year and I don't feel any benefits, like I'm not going to recommend it. So yeah, I like immediately get an energy boost when I take the proenthenols, which is like a antioxidant.
Mhm.
and then the MSM.
Mhm.
They have like a proprietary blend of like antioxidants and like something like a lot of things for their connective tissue. And it literally within like 20 minutes, I get like a boost of steady energy for like 3 hours. And it's so like I'm so mentally clear. Um, yeah, it's insane. I love their products. I
Awesome.
cannot like speak highly of them.
Well, you need to get an
Yeah.
affiliate code for them. That was a great plug.
Yeah, maybe I will. Yeah.
um,
Oh, I'll probably post it actually in the comments so
yeah,
that anyone
yeah,
can just,
yeah. If anyone wants to check
there's
them
the
out, everybody who's a follower of me knows that we're EPN sponsored athletes, EPN supplements, and I did the same thing. They hit me up and I said, before I promote any of these products, I'm going to try them because I'm not somebody who's going to sell or promote anything that I personally don't like or believe in. And I've done tons of different protein powders and pre-workouts and BCAAs and just
yeah,
EPN
amino
delivered
acids.
every single time they showed up with really high quality products. And like for example, how sometimes you'll get like a protein powder or a pre-workout and you'll mix it in your shaker or mix it in a cup and
Because it
then you still
comes.
get the clumps, or after you're done mixing it you let it sit there for a while and it settles down in and then you get that last swig that you take is like you're chewing it. With EPN
Yeah.
supplements, they're really, really soluble. They dissolve perfectly. It doesn't have that issue. And then with whey protein's whey protein. I mean, any whey protein that you get is going to have similar ingredients. It's, some are going to be sweeter, some are going to be okay. One of the things that I was looking for with my protein is like, I want one that tastes good. I drink
Mhm.
protein shake every day. I'm willing to drink a nasty one if that's how I'm going to get my protein in, but I want like a good one. And then when I saw that they had cinnamon toast crunch cereal flavored protein,
Mm.
I was like, I have to have that.
And
And
then,
and I was
yeah.
done. I was sold after that. It was so good. And
Does it
then
taste like
oh my god, it's
cinnamon
like after
toast?
how like after you eat a bowl of cinnamon toast crunch, it's like what's left in the milk. It's just cinnamony
Yeah.
and yeah, it's wonderful. And then their cookies
Ooh.
and cream. They have cake batter flavor, and it literally tastes like you're drinking cake batter. You make a thick shake with like
Hmm.
that. It's
Cake
you almost
batter.
feel
Okay.
guilty drinking it. You're like, should I be drinking this? Because it's so good. And then my wife really likes their BCAAs. Really good stuff. She post workout and during her
Yeah,
workout.
yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that's
there is a
nice.
link in the description for EPN supplements. If wants to try them out, 10% off your order. They've been sold out of some stuff, but check it out. Oh, the other thing that they have that they recently came out with is a all natural sleep. I don't call it a sleeping pill, but it's a sleep aid, and it's got
Mm-hmm.
like valerian root, melatonin, 5-HTP, and it just helps promote deep sleep, naturally. And so,
Hmm.
I'm a big proponent on making sure people, especially who are doing a lot of resistance training and need to make sure that they're getting that full, deep, restful sleep to recover and get the most benefit from what they're doing. Um, I tried it and it doesn't like knock me out. I don't feel like I'm knocking out, but then when I am asleep, I'm in like deep
Very
sleep. Like I
restful.
feel like I'm getting deep into that REM cycle. So they also have that. Well,
Hmm. Nice.
this has definitely been a good conversation. Just one more question that
Went
I
so
had for you.
fast. Oh
What's
my
that?
goodness. I said it went so
It
fast. I'm
did. It
like,
goes
how's it
by. Well,
15
and
already?
these things are like that. I think the longest one I had was like 4 hours, and it didn't feel like 4 hours. It really didn't. We were like, have we really been sitting here doing this for 4 hours? And honestly,
Who was this with? Let's see.
this was with my buddy
That
Austin,
guy.
who runs the studio. He can talk
Yeah.
for days. So
Mhm.
who is your ideal client? Like what kind of person is best for your coach? Not what kind of person, but
Yeah.
like where are they in life? Like,
Uh,
yeah, like who is your
So,
ideal
um,
person?
and I have like about like 10 minutes and I gotta jump off.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
just to be ready for the 6:30. But so my ideal client and my ideal avatar is basically someone who is super busy, who either is like a business owner or an entrepreneur, coach, someone who's basically juggling a lot and kind of puts themselves on the back burner, whether they just forgot, um, or they don't really know how to put themselves as a priority. Maybe they
Mhm.
lost touch with themselves. Everything else seems a whole lot more important than their health. Um, it's kind of like a previous version of myself, I guess. Like they're so busy with work or their business, or their family that they think that they can't have it all, right?
Mhm.
So, like, hey, either my business is thriving and I'm doing really well as an entrepreneur, and then my health fails, or vice versa. You see what I'm saying? So,
Mhm. They don't know how to make
yeah,
that balance.
exactly. Mhm.
Gotcha. Well, hit Rachel up on Instagram if that's you, if you're a busy entrepreneur, someone who's building a business, but then, looked in the mirror 5 years later and realized that you let your health go, and can help you out. And obviously, if you're a busy parent who's trying to navigate raising children in this crazy world and having a career and getting your body from your youth back before you had kids, uh, you know where to find me. So, well, thank you so much, Rachel, for jumping on. This was fun. I think this was a very informative talk. So I'll let you get to what you got to get to, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, that was great. Have a good night,
All
and
right.
we'll talk. All right, bye.